Welcome to our extremely abbreviated and quite possibly inaccurate history of, well, gayness. It would appear that the Egyptians, Romans and Greeks and the other ancient cultures all accepted same-sex relationships and saw them as a normal part of everyday life. However, this all changed when this bloke called Jesus Christ turned up, who strangely enough happened to be a white guy. Irritatingly, Jesus didn't say anything at all about same-sex relationships, but that hasn't stopped some Christians getting really upset about it over the last 2,000 years. Then, around 400 years after Jesus' death, another Christian called Augustine comes up with the idea that sex was the original sin that got Adam kicked out of Eden. And that was it. Forever, sexual pleasure was linked to sin in the mind of the Christians. This presented a problem for those with homosexual desires because obviously having relations with someone of the same sex as you can hardly be considered as procreation of the species. Slowly but surely, repression began to take hold, and across history, gay men and women became sinners to be persecuted in a series of often horrible ways. Nothing much changed until the end of the 19th century, when finally people began to stop seeing homosexuality as an immoral choice. Instead, some people began to see it as a mental illness. Now that it was seen as a form of madness, another group of people known as psychiatrists decided they'd best cure it. One of the ways they decided to do this was called aversion therapy. This treatment basically consisted of showing gay male patients erotic images of men and then electrocuting them or forcing them to be sick. Surprisingly, it often didn't work out, but undeterred, they continued to do it all the way up until the 1970s. Now that the Christians and the psychiatrists and everybody else had decided that being gay was a type of person, they decided to give them a name, and finally, the homosexual was invented. But what no one expected was that these new homosexuals now had an identity to form around, and before you knew it, they were beginning to organise, form groups and begin talking about crazy ideas about civil rights and equality. Despite events like Oscar Wilde's imprisonment and the homosexual victims of the Nazi Holocaust, the liberation movement slowly began to grow. And finally, in 1967, homosexuality was decriminalised in England and Wales between two men over the age of 21.
Sorry about that.
Over the years, gay rights groups have achieved all sorts of equalities, including reducing the age of consent to 16, the right for same-sex couples to adopt, and the freedom for homosexuals to marry in civil partnerships. Now with their newfound equality, everybody lived happily ever after. Well, sort of. To find out what happened next, watch This Is Gonna Sound a Bit Gay on Current TV on Thursday the 2nd of July at 10 PM.